Right, so here we are at the veggie garden. As you can see, my basil is looking beautiful. It's pretty much taken over the whole garden actually. I won't be able to get to the eggplant at the back, but while that basil is looking as good as it is, and before it goes to seed, you can see over here it's going to flower. I'm going to just start harvesting that basil and making. I'll be picking all of this basil today and making quite a few tubs of pesto. But as you can see, if you can see that, rain clouds are starting to come in pretty quick, so I better get this picked so I can get this video started. As we're getting ready for Christmas now, we've got less than a month to go. I'm going to be putting up 3 videos just with a bit of a Christmas theme. So today we're going to be doing a set of 3 dips. We've got a lot of basil out in the garden, a veggie garden that I've just harvested, so as you can see there's a fair bit. So I'm going to be making Basil Pesto. I'm going to be doing a red pesto as well with sun-dried tomatoes, char-grilled capsicum and cashews. And then for the last one I'm going to be doing my beetroot dip. Now my beetroot dip I've done on a previous video before, so we don't need to go through all that again, but that'll just be another component on the dish. And we're going to be doing that with, I've got some olive ciabatta, a Kalamata olive ciabatta, and I've got some sourdough as well. So a selection of 3 dips that we can make. It's really fast, it's really easy, and just something you can make up a day ahead, so when your guests arrive, it's there waiting for them, and it's just great and it's tasty. So the following video we'll be doing next week, we'll be doing a salmon dish for Christmas, and then we've got another one that we're going to be doing as well. Right, so this is our basil here that we've harvested out of the garden. There's a fair amount there, so I'm not going to give you the recipe for this whole amount. I'll give you the recipe for a more manageable amount of pesto. But like I said to you before, it's important that you take these these flowers off before you make the pesto, because I have found that they do tend to make the pesto a little bit bitter. And then obviously just keep a lookout for leaves over here that are going a bit brown as well. They go as well. So all these leaves get picked, don't include the flowers, and the whole lot gets washed and just maybe gently dried in a salad spinner. Right, so here's all our ingredients ready to go for the pesto. If you're looking at all these ingredients thinking, well, that's quite a bit more than what the recipe says, just keep in mind that's quite a bit of basil I harvested earlier today, so I'm doing quite a big batch. But if you just stick to the recipe below, you'll be fine. I've got about 1.5 cups of basil on that recipe, and I've pretty much quadrupled the recipe with this one over here. Now the pine nuts over here, you'll see I haven't toasted them, so I'm about to put them in a pan now and just toast them till they're golden brown, and then I'll shave the parmesan as well, and the lemon needs to be juiced, but that's pretty close to where the recipe is. If you divide all these ingredients by 4, you'll get the recipe below. Right, so here we've got our basil in the blender. So we're going to blend that down until it breaks right down. Now, as you'll notice, I've got only the leaves. I've taken all of the stalk off. It's very important you remove all of the stalk and any black leaves that there may be. If you don't remove all of the stalk, you're going to get little chunky bits through your pesto, and you're not going to get a smooth pesto. So it's important that you take off all that stalk and all of the impurities. So we're going to blend that down, and then we'll add the pine nuts. I've added half my basil now, and I'm going to add half of my pine nuts. This just helps the basil to break down. For this volume of basil, the machine tends to struggle a little bit, so adding some of the pine nuts just helps the machine to deal with all that basil. Now I'm going to add the other half of the pine nuts, followed by the garlic and lemon juice. Adding my garlic now. and my lemon juice. So next I'm adding my parmesan. Now I've got a whole block of parmesan which I'm just going to shave in. You probably use a hand grater, I'm just going to shave it and blend it up, and then after the olive oil. Now the olive oil, I'm using a light olive oil so the flavour is not intense. I don't want to take away from the delicate flavours of the parmesan, which is going to be quite delicate against the intense basil flavour. So once we've added the olive oil to that, we'll then season it. Just a little bit of salt and some pepper, and maybe just a little bit of sugar so it counteracts the acidity of the lemon juice, and then we'll be done. And there she is, beautiful basil pesto. Now if you like your pesto to be quite loose like I've got over here, just add more oil. If you like it to be quite firm so you could quenelle it, just add less oil. It's as simple as that. Watch that lemon juice as well, that tends to have quite a big effect on the consistency of your pesto. So next time we'll move now to the red pesto. Right, so for my pesto rosso or red pesto, there's 5 basic ingredients. Grilled capsicum. Remember we did that grilled capsicum the other day on that lamb rack video. So that's been grilled over an open flame and then cleaned of any seeds. Semi-dried tomatoes, parmesan. I use cashews instead of pine nuts in my red pesto. And olive oil. I use a light olive oil, and of course seasoning as well. So that follows the exact same method as your regular pesto that we just did. So both your semi-dried tomatoes or sun-dried tomatoes if you want a more intense flavor, both your tomatoes and your capsicum in the blender first until you get a paste. Then your cashew nuts, then your parmesan, then your olive oil, then finally your seasoning. So that's it there. It's a beautiful, rich, deep orange color. It's got a fantastic, rich flavor, and just unreal. Now it's important to remember that your cashew nuts are roasted but unsalted. If you get salted, it's just going to make your pesto way too salty. So roasted, unsalted is what you need to get, and that leaves you free to season it right at the end. This one I find tends to need a bit more sugar than the other one does, because your capsicums and your tomatoes tend to be a little bit more acidic. So just keep that in mind. Right guys, so your guests are arriving, and here's your 3 dips ready to greet them with some beautiful warm bread. So there's our fresh basil pesto we made with the pine nuts. Here's our pesto rosso, the grilled capsicum, semi-dried tomatoes with the cashew nuts, and that beetroot dip that we did in the previous video. Now I'll post a link to that video under this one so you can see how to do that. We're serving that with Kalamata olive sourdough, and I've got a beautiful cheese sourdough as well. So they've just come out the oven, and your guests are ready to arrive, and you've got this to greet them. Don't forget, next week we're doing that salmon video, and after that we'll probably do a dessert. So it's got a good couple of 3 videos as we lead up to Christmas. Thanks for joining me. See ya.